my flag back.
She would carry it.
All right.
And hang her purse on it.
I'll get the thumbs up from the camera guy. We're good? All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Monday, February the 13th, Valentine's Day Eve, regular board meeting. I call the meeting to order. Mr. Bertram, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Moore,
Here.
Mrs. Schreiber,
Here.
Mrs. Mulligan.
Here.
Dr. Urso.
Here.
And Mrs. Stewart is excused this evening.
Okay, wonderful. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United
States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I appreciate Mr. Bertram always moving the flag, so we have a little excitement at the beginning.
I just looked for it there.
Yeah, I look over here, I'm looking everywhere for
I
it.
moved it back.
It's all right, it's all right. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Ms. Schreiber. Any questions regarding tonight's agenda? If there are none, then Mr. Bertram.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan.
Yes.
Dr. Urso.
Yes. Does not appear to have any public participation this evening, but we do have the honor of having a presentation by KVO and our middle school principal. And so I welcome both of them to talk to us about Impact Camp. So Mr. Aldridge and Mr. Valenti.
For the board, while our guests are making their way up to the podium, we've invited Principal Valenti from the middle school, as well as, I call him Coach, Coach Aldridge from KVO, to speak to the board about Impact Camp. This is an initiative that we put together in collaboration with a number of community partners a couple years ago. We've been funding this effort out of the youth initiatives, out of the ESSER 3 allocations, as the board has approved. Just want to give the board some updates around the concept of the camp, the purpose, and the impact it is having on middle school students real time. A lot of celebrations about success for some of our students. So I'm going to turn it over to Principal Valenti and give the board a chance to hear about Impact Camp, as there's an agenda item later on this evening that we'll ask you to consider. Thanks for being here, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stiles. Thank you, Board, for allowing us to present just a little bit tonight. Mr. Stiles came to me about, I want to say about a year and a half ago, asking if we would be interested in doing this Impact Camp. Obviously, I'm always for trying to get our kids involved in more activities, especially positive. And especially when he told me it was going to be with Kevin. I've known Kevin for years. Actually, Kevin worked with our students back in the old building. We're trying to figure out when that was. Probably about 10 years ago. Originally, Kevin worked with some of our students, and that was successful as well. But unfortunately, that grant ran out. But knowing Kevin for many years, in fact, I coached Kevin in 8th grade, which was just a couple years ago. So it was good to work with Kevin again. We had our first camp, which was just about a year ago. We had a group of girls that we targeted. These girls had some behavior concerns that we were trying to work on, and so we ran that camp. It was a 3-day, 2-night camp that the students were a part of. It was very successful. So then we expanded it going into this school year. In the fall, we did another group of girls. This one we targeted on students who maybe just didn't always connect with the school, not necessarily discipline concerns, but maybe had anxiety about coming to school. And again, this camp was successful. Then the next group that we did were boys, a group of boys. And same kind of thing, anxiety, not connecting with school, and again, very successful. But in each of these camps, we were looking at less than 15 kids being a part of the camp. So after we ran these 3 camps, we started to talk about how do we get more kids involved? How can we not just have 40 kids, but how can we get hundreds of kids involved in something very, very positive? And so we've met, and Kevin has come up with a plan, and that is what you're going to get to hear a little bit about tonight. This is Kevin now.
I call him Coach. So we'll just start here. I mean, first of all, Kingdom Vision Outreach, I launched it in 2006. as an extension of ministry work I have been doing. I've been doing ministry for about 25 years. And so this was an opportunity for me to get into the marketplace and really try to impact change in a different way. I was impacted as a young person through sports. I have a strong sports background, and wanted to figure out how to apply that, as well as figuring out how to promote strong character development. That's very important to me, being able to influence those around me to look at personal responsibility, but also at the same time being accountable when they're right and when they're wrong, and then also being able to figure out how to promote strong character development. And so the website's there for you to kind of check out at your leisure to be able to learn a little more about what else we offer here. So fast forward to the Impact Camp that Ms. Verlaine was talking about. The one thing we wanted to encourage the students who participated in the pilot, as well as the families, is that this was an opportunity for them to reimagine themselves. Many of them have made some missteps, and we wanted to give them this opportunity that if they just allowed us, because we always say you have to, we can't work above your will, you have to allow us to work with you, so help us help you. And if they were okay with that, we were going to help them see how they can reimagine the potential that they have so that they can go back into the school environment and be more productive. And so the one quote that I would share with the students before we would get started is a quote by Monty Williams, who is the NBA head coach for the Phoenix Suns. And it's something I've been applying for myself the last few months. Everything you want is on the other side of hard. So I would tell them that. I said, everything you want is on the other side of hard. It doesn't mean that life has to be hard every single day, but it's hard to make change, no matter what age you're at. And so I would tell them, though, if you're willing to put in the work, you can get on that other side, and you can find the best version of yourself. And so we started out with that, and then, as you heard Mr. Valenti, how we selected the students, we had referral markers that he had an opportunity, him and his staff, to select from. Initially, we were like, we wanted the students to participate. They had to at least meet 3 of the 5 areas, but we kind of evolved from that and just allowed Mr. Valenti and his staff to just pretty much give us students that they felt would work well in this pilot. Our goals initially were, we wanted to assess the needs of the students. We wanted to get them in another environment. I'm not a big outdoors person. So not only was it a challenge for the students, it was a challenge for our staff as well, but that's good. We were able to kind of be transparent with one another and figure out how to work together for a common goal. And then we also wanted them to explore the opportunities that were presented. Our partnership with the Y being out of Camp Campbell Guard is a unique one. And what they're looking for, they're looking to provide more access for students to be exposed to their campgrounds. So it worked out really well for us. And then lastly, we wanted to get them to develop new skills. And so, no pun intended, impact is the main thing, but we also needed them to provide effort. So we told them day one, you know, you're just not coming out here to cook s'mores. You're gonna be working. And their days were long. They would spend 3 days, 2 nights. They would have a long day. We would fill their calendar up. But we said that if you just give us an opportunity, we believe that we can restore some hope in you when you leave out of here. And so with that, we noticed that there were some unique challenges that the students faced. We noticed that. First of all, they were brought out of their comfort zone. We were brought out of our comfort zone. And from that, we saw that, hey, being in this new environment, you're gonna be able to exercise some safe independence. So I don't know how many of you have been out to Camp Campbell Guard, but it's a large area. And one of the things that we would tell them is during your free time, you can explore the campgrounds, but when it gets dark, it gets dark. And so we would provide boundaries for them, but it was an opportunity for them to be able to explore the outdoors, be able to take in what they had learned during the day and figure out how to come back better the next day. The next thing was we would think about them establishing trust. For many of them, they would come in, a group of students, many of them didn't necessarily like the students they were with or didn't know. They didn't know us. So immediately we had to try to work with them and figure out how can we establish trust so that we can make this the most meaningful experience for you. And then lastly, what we wanted to do with them was be able to give them an opportunity to learn new skills and techniques They were already coping. They were already doing that work. But what we wanted them to see was if we can just make some slight adjustments. And the thing was, a lot of stuff that we were telling them they had already heard. So we were saying this is not going to be anything new. And we would bring in presenters and professionals and experts in their fields that would come in and focus on these 6 areas. And as we were looking at these 6 areas, we felt like this kind of goes hand in hand with the Passport to Tomorrow program. So when they would come in, beginning of the morning, they would get their schedule. Each of these areas would be covered. The physical activity was done through the YMCA. So their staff would come and do team building exercises as well with them. And they would be able to collaborate and work towards a common goal. One of the activities they faced was the zip line challenge course. Many of them didn't complete it because some were scared of heights, some didn't want to be a part of that. But what we encouraged them immediately is that you gave it a try. You gave it a try. Maybe the next time you might actually go from putting on the equipment to actually getting in. Some put on the equipment and are like, no,
That's
not enough. We wanted them to see this as an opportunity because we noticed that some of the students were really thinking like, am I in trouble? Why am I here? How did I make this in? This is something that probably a high achieving student should be a part of, not me. So immediately, sometimes we spend a lot of time just building their confidence up to say, hey, you can be a part of things like this. And so we felt like after going through this and getting some of the feedback, I would receive feedback from the camp staff, our team, the students, and a lot of them were saying that this is an opportunity that should not just rest with the student population that we had reached. How can we expand it? And not just in the camp format, but just how can we modify and scale this up to be able to provide other experiences that the students can be a part of so that we can make a deeper impact and reach more students. So, as I mentioned, one of the opportunities we wanted to scale this program and modify our approach. So in order to do that, we had to look at the camp idea, but we also understood logistically that couldn't work for bringing in 600 students to a 3-day, 2-night camp. So how can we modify this to make it work? So I had presented to Mr. Stiles and Mr. Valenti a module of options that we can provide, some in school, some 1-day experiences, and then we would still have an overnight experience, but instead of a 3-day, 2-night that would target 15 students, what we would do is over the course of 3 days, 2 nights, we would just route groups of students in one at a time. So one group would come in from, let's say, 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. A bus would come in, pick them up, a new group would come. And it would allow us to touch more students. Another thing that we really knew that we needed to grow and improve on was the follow-up. We didn't want this to be a one-time thing. How can we follow this up? Do we have the capacity to be able to do this? And one of the things that I'm big on is collaboration. I have a wealth of resources as far as relationships. I know a lot of community groups are doing good work, but this is not their lane. So they'll say, Kevin, this is not my lane, but if you can do this, and if you can assess, and you can route them to us, we can take it from there. So that's what we want to be intentional about. As we're expanding this program, when they come out of a camp experience, it doesn't stop there. All right, we'll have, with our presenters and with our team, they will assess the students. We give them that flexibility to make recommendations so that when they come out of it, the goal is for them to have kind of an individualized report so that when they come out, they'll know what the next steps are. Either we'll route them through another module that we have available, or we can be able to refer them to another community resource. And as you see here, some of the quick wins that we had coming out of the camp initially, obviously they were exposed to a new environment, they were able to explore new interests, and they were able to to work on their behavior. Thank you. Some of the challenges, we felt that with this being a new environment, some of the parents really didn't understand what they were getting into. And so some of the students were not prepared properly, even though we would provide the information in writing, email, everything like that. Some of the students didn't come prepared as far as having what they needed to have at camp. So we wanted to make sure that we can really work on that and really figure out how to make that connection. I'm going to jump, I've already talked about the expansion, to the follow-up task that we would like to do is provide, I'm going to step right here so you can see this. So we want to adopt a more formal process to be able to measure impact. Mr. Lenny and I was talking about this, you know, how can we measure this? It's a process. It's a process. And we feel like with the camp, we had 45 students, 43 of them completed. Out of the 43 students, 80% said that they would come back. Now, the ones that they just weren't sure, it wasn't that they were opposed to it, they just weren't sure because the experience for itself was a culture shock. So we still figured out that, hey, out of this first initial experience for many of these students who have never been on a campground, who have never been exposed to some of the things that we had provided for them, they were willing to give it another try. They saw the benefit in it. The family saw the benefit in it. And so that was something that we definitely wanted to build upon and see how we can tap into the other options that we have for this program. So we're moving now from a camp only to a program module. So in school, we're going to work with students who may have a track record of behavior issues. And we have a program set for them. Our biggest option will be for those students who will be able to come onto the campground for just a few hours. We feel like that's going to be our biggest thing, being able to get them exposed to the campground, get exposed to what we're trying to do so that we can build up to the overnight experience. We want the overnight experience to now become kind of the reward. And now this allows us to be able to tap in and reach more students. And at the same time, we're also looking at how we can even expand it down to the elementary grades. We feel like the ages that we're reaching now are the pivotal age groups that need to be able to be encouraged and be able to understand how they can be reimagined in their approach of being the best version of themselves. And so I close with saying we can make an impact, we can make it together. We're not the end-all be-all, we're complementing what's already out there. And we're just trying to just be of service to be able to help students get to the next level and at the same time make the district the way they want it to be. So.
Mr. Valenti and Mr. Aldridge, if you guys could just share maybe just a couple of student stories, some success stories, not to put a name with the child, but just kind of talk about maybe how the transition or transformation has happened and some successes that the kids may have experienced
One
at the school.
student in our first camp, she came in a little self-conscious about her appearance, a little closed off. I think because of that, she had some anger issues and got herself in some trouble. From that, as we began to work with her and bring her through the camp agenda, and she connected with some of the presenters that we had talking about being able to look at self-image and confidence, and she came out of that. And from that, we're not saying that it's directly connected to it, but we saw her grow from, she went from our camp experience to where she was able to make the volleyball team. And I think up to that point, she hadn't really been able to complete a season with a particular team. So though she still had these self-image issues, she had enough confidence to say, I'm going to try this sport and I'm going to stick it out. That was one of the things we told students. Day one, some of them were like, man, I'm ready to go. They're like, stick it out, finish, finish, finish. So for her, she finished. We had another student who actually made the honor roll and was nominated for a leadership program in the community. And I didn't know if you had any.
Yeah, I'll talk about the parents across the board. Because I met with each of the parents before they went on to the camp, and so many of them called me afterwards and said, "This is the first time my child has ever been a part of something at the school," and they were so thankful that they could be a part of this. So not only is it making a difference, I think, for our students that got to be a part of this. And again, it's like what Kevin said. It's not, they're hearing the same message at school, but they're hearing it now from someone else and getting to live it for a couple of days there. But the positiveness that the parents were coming back were just it just made you feel good. It was making a difference for them as well.
We have one male student who pretty much admitted that he wasn't getting it done in the classroom the way he should have. And some of the topics that we were engaging the students on with our workshop presenters really touched him in a way to where he was able to be accountable and said, you know what, I need to do better. These 3 days, the way the camp agenda was structured, I mean, they were exposed to different things. I mean, we're talking yoga, we're talking, you know, they had workshops to where they focused on leadership and grit. And he said he came out of that understanding that, you know, some of the things I'm already learning in school, I recognized that I was selling it short. And for some reason, it wasn't like it was new information, but it was just this moment happened for me. And I think I want to try to give it a better try. And that's what we want them to understand. It's just, again, it's a reset for some of them. We're letting them know that you already are hearing a lot of these things. You already have the supports around you, but for some reason it's not connecting. So the impact is a jolt. And what we want to go is from the jolt to actually being able to constantly continue to touch and work.
So before we open it up for board comments, just a couple things. Number one, an agenda item for the board later on in the evening is around using some of the youth-based initiative ESSER funds to continue some of the impact camps that we have scheduled for this school year. Another thing that we'd like the board to just consider moving forward is just a recommendation as we kind of finalize and shake out what our game plan would be for the 23-24 school year, using some of those remaining ESSER funds in that already allocated line item to continue some of these efforts to scale across the middle school to hit more students. So two different things. One is the here and now to finish out the school year and really impact students, and then knowing that we're finalizing the package to come back to you as far as ESSER funds out of that line item for the future. So with that, we'll open it up for the board for comments or anything that's on your mind related to the topic.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful to me, and I know there are so many kids who get lost in the shuffle, and it's good to have these kids picked out. I'm wondering, and Mr. Valenti, maybe you can answer this too, when these kids come back, and you said you have follow-up tasks for them to do, are there key people in the faculty of the middle school who might, you don't want every teacher horning in on this, you know, I know that you don't want people bothering them, but like, people who know what their kind of goals now are and who can kind of remind them of that. Does that kind of fit in there with it too?
Yeah, absolutely. So our teachers are the ones who select them. So
Okay.
I go to each of the teams
Okay.
and I kind of give kind of what the idea is and what type of student we're looking for. They're the ones who give them to me.
Okay.
So they know exactly who's going to the camp. We have an advisory that we do 2 days a week. And those teachers then are with those students.
Okay.
And so they're able to reinforce, ask questions, because they know they're at the camp, they know what's happening at the camp.
Good.
And so, yeah, there's obviously that they're touching with those students throughout, sure.
I think it's great that there's something special for, there are so many kids that get lost on the sidelines and don't have that opportunity until something serious happens, or if something serious happens.
Right.
And I'm
Sounds
a parent
wonderful.
too. My daughter is in the 8th grade
Mm-hmm.
at the middle school, honor student, but my wife is an educator.
Sure.
But even in that, we still have our challenges. And so
Absolutely.
some of the students that were a part of this don't even have that support.
Absolutely.
And so when we decided, you know, I think we need to expand is that we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves. We didn't want students who could be high achieving, but maybe struggling in certain areas, missing out on an opportunity to be in here. So we're evolving now from the camp format and we're going into a program format. And again, the follow-up is going to be key, being able to connect them to those other resources when they come out of whatever experience they're placed in.
Thank
I
you.
might have missed this, but curious that you started with the girls. That's interesting. And did they go to camp after their 7th grade, between 7th and 8th grade, or before 7th grade, or what?
They were a combination of both 7th and 8th grade.
Going into 7th and going into 8th.
So, some of the girls were already in 7th, some of the girls were in 8th.
Oh, okay.
And most didn't know each other. So it wasn't because I went to all 6 of our teams, and they each gave 2 to 3 students. And then we've got it down to, because, I mean, I went through a ton of kids because, you know, some had games, some, you know, whatever it may be, that it didn't work with their schedule. But we had representatives from each of the teams, both 7th and an 8th.
And so when you get the follow-up lined up or defined, or so those girls they'll benefit from that too?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. On this, with Kevin's, what we're looking at now, some of them could be a repeat person. With as many students as we're gonna be able to touch now, it's going to, without a doubt, some of these will be repeat people.
Thanks.
And the group was kind of like a cohort, so that's kind of what we sold initially, was that they would stay and we would follow them. But again, everything is still kind of fluid with it just being a pilot initiative at first.
No, I appreciate the work. I know, like you, I'm not an outdoorsy kind of person, camping, and yeah, that stuff just doesn't, I don't know. And so, will the students, it still seems like there'll be some type of camp experience for pockets. It's just not 3 days, it'll be narrowed
Correct.
to 1, and then you'll kind of just circle through.
Right.
And then with that, like, what's the, like, adult to young person ratio typically that you try to achieve?
So we wanted, with the overnight, we didn't want to go beyond 15, one, because we had conversations with the YMCA. This was new for them too, and so we asked them what is comfortable for them and their staff, and for our staff. So really that 15 to 1 is really kind of where we would stay.
Okay. So in terms of, 15 young people to 1 adult
Yes,
staying?
in the camp situation. Now, when we expanded into our day camp, we're trying to bring 30 students
Okay.
on site for a few hours. So obviously we'll have our team, our staff team, which could be 1 to 2 people, along with myself, the Y team, which could have up to 3 to 4 that can
Gotcha.
manage all of that. Obviously with the girls, we match them up with girl staff, with the boys, match them with boy staff, and kind of work through that.
No, again, I appreciate the work and the thoughtfulness, and to see that, yeah, the young folks have responded to it as a great thing. So thank you.
And just to highlight the number of community partners that are at the table. You've heard YMCA, you've heard KVO, you've heard My City Teens, you've heard CBI, and number of other community partners. So when we convened in this room for about 3 months and we were on the whiteboards and the papers, you were at the table as well. This is one of the outcomes of rallying the community supports for the sake of the youth. So I just want to commend both of these gentlemen for really focusing on what the students need, and more importantly, scaling the effort to make sure they reach all kids, not just what we originally set out to. So excited about the work, the impact it's having on kids, and looking forward to not only the rest of the school year, but hopefully we come up with a framework and some of the ESSER 3 allocations in the future to support next school year.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
apologize, get a little sweaty. I'm a preacher. So
No, you're good. You're
Thank
good.
you so much.
Thank
man.
you very
Have a good
much.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Valenti, I know you have homework for Team 8-1, so if you want to go ahead and slide out and start working on that homework, that works good.
All right, moving along. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any questions, things to be highlighted within tonight's consent agenda? I noticed there are quite a few field trips, again, repeating from our last meeting. I believe we approved some monies for this. It's exciting to see our young folks going to the aquarium, the Perfect North Slopes. I think, Mr. Stiles, you explained that. We have some folks within our special education department that are going to have an opportunity to experience Perfect North. That's another activity I'm not all that great at. I'm highlighting all the things that I'm not so good at. But it's exciting to see that we'll have physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists working with our young folks at Perfect North. If there are no questions, appears there are none, then Mr. Bertram, we're ready to vote.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
And Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Under Human Resources, we have one agenda item. Is there a motion to approve, or it's a first read, excuse me, of our 24-25 school calendar? So I'll allow Mr. Stiles to kind of walk us through that.
Thank you, Dr. So again, first read for our Board of Education tonight. This is the 2024-25 school calendar. As you know, this is a collaborative process. We do have a calendar committee that consists of a number of different stakeholders. They collaborate with one another, and this is the proposal that they're making for us to consider. A few things for the board to take a look at, as well as our community. Number one, if you'll notice, the start of the school year in August. We'll continue the phase-in. We'll also continue in-service time, as well as device distribution concepts that have been very beneficial the last 3 years. If you'll notice, the school year on 24-25, the first day of school is August the 19th. So as concerned as the world has been about school keeps starting earlier and earlier, because of the layout of the calendar, you'll see that the school year is being pushed back. We've also continued the fall breaks based on some of the input from our staff that has been very well received from our staff as well as our students. Those are built in. You'll also notice that we've continued, for the sake of the transition into the implementation of Passport to Tomorrow, September 3rd, November the 5th, and February the 18th. Continuing with 3 personalized learning days, similar to what we have this school year. And we also have those dates built into the 23-24 school calendar. Again, as always, if you look at the month of December, the holidays really kind of dictate the schedules. You know, we try to have a clean conclusion to the first semester for a lot of different reasons. Kind of start building the calendar around there. And then fast forwarding all the way to the end of the school year set for the month of May. You will notice that May 22nd is the last date of school, pretty close to what we've experienced in the past. Again, device distribution, August 16th, with the phase-in dates that you see listed there. If you look down in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see the different quarters broken out with the total number of school days per quarter. Again, if you look at the unique placement around the holidays being in the middle of the week, it really kind of disrupts the traditional flow. But total school days is very consistent with the traditional school calendars that the board's approved in the past. So with that, again, first read for tonight. Welcome for your feedback. Again, calendar committee collaborative process just met recently to wrap the process up, which is what you have in front of you tonight.
You said that the number of days is comparable, meaning it's not identical. Are there fewer or more days as compared to, do you happen to know?
I could do the quick math for you real fast. We're 174. We usually land right around 180 total days in the school year, roughly right around there. From a state perspective, with the law that passed a number of years ago around hours, you can afford approximately 15 to 17 snow days. But we definitely are more than compliant with the total number of hours required for the state.
The reason why the third quarter is the longest, is that because Easter break is in there? Or,
again, we try to start with December to have a clean break around the holiday season. If you do notice, with the school being pushed back a little bit more in the beginning of August, and if you look at the placement around the holidays, for example, this year, I believe the holiday landed on the weekend, so really caused a little bit of disruption in that second quarter. Those two things combined really kind of caused some readjusting for the second half of the school year.
I guess you want the field trips to be in nice weather and that, and because if that's the longest quarter, it seems like the field trips would be convenient if they were in that long quarter, but I guess things don't always work out that way. It's a good calendar.
Do the number of our school days compare to other districts in the area? So I forget what you said, 170.
174.
174, is that comparable to other districts in the GMC or in this region?
I don't have that data with me tonight, but that's something we could definitely research.
We're shooting for 1,080 hours, aren't we? Is that the number of hours?
Yeah, we're very compliant with the state.
I know.
Traditionally, school districts are more than compliant with total number of days. With the change in legislation, hours have really not been a concern as far as school districts are concerned. Again, first read, if the board would like to just kind of take a look, if you want to provide me any feedback, feel free to shoot that to me and we can provide that to the calendar committee.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Thank you. Under curriculum and instruction this evening, we have one contract up for approval. It's the KVO Impact Camp, whose presentation we just observed. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any question or commentary regarding this?
Again, just a level set, the team here tonight, this is to continue the services for the remainder of the school year. We're framing up a final proposal that we probably will return back to the board with around the youth-based initiative ESSER funds for the 23-24 school year.
It seems like we're okay to vote. Mr. Bertram?
Mrs. Mulligan,
Yes.
Dr. Urso.
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber.
Yes.
Under business this evening, we have an action item. It's the allocation of funds for HVAC systems and components. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
And I believe this was from our presentation last meeting. Any questions, further clarification needed?
No.
Ms. Mulligan, we good?
Yes.
And we're good, Mr. Bertram.
All right, Dr. Urso,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan.
Yes.
Under the superintendent line item, we have a contract or approval to commit remaining ESSER 3 funds to the Middletown Community Center project. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
In a second, please.
Second.
Ms. Mulligan with the second. Question or discussion regarding this allocation? I'll just say on behalf of the board representative on the committee for the community center, the partnership with the city, I know that we've been walking closely together with this project. We had a community kind of gathering a week or so ago at Rosa Parks where we're trying to solicit more funds to fully capture the opportunity for our young folks. The effort that as a district we're putting forth, I think, is in good faith, moving this project along, so I appreciate the support. Mr. Bertram, I think we're ready.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber,
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan,
Yes.
Dr. Urso.
Yes. That takes us to committee reports. I'll turn it over to our superintendent. Is there anything in terms of committees that, from last meeting to now, to bring forward?
We've not had any committee meetings with a short turnaround from the last board meeting. We do have a community center meeting coming up here relatively shortly, later in the month.
I would like to ask my two committee members for policy review. I'd like to have those on a monthly basis, starting with the first Thursday of each month, and start those at approximately 3 o'clock. If it's good with you two, I'll get the work going to have us ready on March 2nd.
Anything else within committees? Like I indicated and Mr. Stiles did, the community center project will meet, I don't believe it's this Thursday, it's the following Thursday? Is it 24th? 23rd, in about 10 days. An important meeting. We'll walk through quite a different number of items, and so hopefully at our next meeting I'll have a more elaborate update for you.
Can I just share with the board just an update around the conversation around Boys and Girls Club? Again, just to make sure we're all level set. We did bring CBI leadership as well as reached out to the leadership at the Boys and Girls Club just to reset the conversation. A lot of conversations and potential planning and proposals kind of flying all over the place with a lot of different parties involved. So we're convening the team that really here at the school district sets the vision and programming for after school and summer programs. We're going to speak with CBI and go through a collaborative process to really get a sense of what our desire is to serve, meaning how many students do we want to reach. Once we establish capacity, we'll evaluate CBI's partnership as well as the district's ability to reach that capacity. If there are any type of areas in which an additional partner could come to the table, we want to have that really identified as early as possible. Reached out to the executive at Westchester Boys and Girls Club, who's been our main contact, shared with him the process, and he's very excited about coming to the table. And all three parties, Boys and Girls Club, CBI, and the school district, sitting at one table to really evaluate if there's a value add proposition that Westchester can bring to the table to help us reach that capacity. So everyone has been level set. We've reset the entire conversation. everyone's on the same page. We've had one common communication go out here recently. We're working on schedules right now to figure out when that time may be. But as a school district, we'll be able to really determine who those partners are when it comes to us being able to serve our students in after school and summer programs.
Thank you.
Yep.
That takes us to board reports. Mr. Moore, anything to report this evening?
No comments this evening.
All right, Ms. Shiver?
I have nothing to report.
Ditto.
All right. Well, I just wanted to congratulate a few of our seniors who recently signed. I believe Majaden Lewis and Lamont Chambers are both going to Findlay to play football. Ronan Casanova, a student from Central Academy, I remember Ronan, is going to Marist University to play football. DeMarco Powell and Christian Printup, I think just earlier this week, or last week, signed to go to the University of the Cumberlands. Asia Espiritu is going to West Liberty University to play soccer. And so all of them, gosh, congratulations. That's a great accomplishment. We wish them well. I believe this weekend, Avery Earls will be swimming at Miami in the districts for the 100-meter breaststroke. And so congratulations, Avery. We wish you well. And just recently, I think Talon Malako, who I believe is a sophomore at the high school, was first place at a meet at Ohio State in the 60-meter hurdles and is currently ranked in the top 25 in the state. He's only a sophomore, and I remember watching him play some football, too. He's a good football player. Our boys and girls bowling teams, I noticed that they're doing well. Our men's basketball team, the first winning season since 2014, and I think they have a chance to make a little bit of noise in the postseason. Excited to watch them. Our women's basketball team, I think, have totally rebooted, and there's a lot of positive energy around that program. Wrestling has been doing really well. Winter sports in general have just had really good seasons, and just excited to kind of see the success and smiling faces and excited fans. And so that's it for me. Mr. Bertram, Mr. Stiles?
Yeah, I'd just like to say a lot of the work that Mr. Stiles and I have been working on with the community center, along with the committee, of course, starting to see it come to fruition. It's really, really exciting work that we're doing for the community and for the children of the community as well. And I'm really hoping our fundraising campaign comes in strong. We can make things happen to get that gymnasium done. I want to thank the board for the additional consideration to contribute towards that along with the city. I think, we're the two anchors to the mall, if you will, and hopefully the community comes in and drives it home. I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out. And since we're talking about it, I'd like to say I'm going to hate losing my partner in crime, Mr. Stiles, here in this process. We've been at it for 2+ years now, and all good things must come to an end. And as happy as I am for Marlon, I'm sad for me. But I'm glad everything's coming together, and I'm really excited as a whole. And hopefully we can drive it home, and Mr. Stiles will come back for the ribbon cutting. So.
Yes.
Just one comment for tonight. February 21st is our next personalized learning day for the school district. Again, no school for students, but there is school for students. They're called Passport to Tomorrow experiences. There's a communication that just started getting pushed out. The whole plan's being activated. Should have emails in everyone's accounts with the choice board as far as some of the activities. I just want to recognize Dayton University, who's one of our Ready Now 100 endorsing partners. They're coming into the school district to provide some experiences for our children on the board. We also have a couple partners under finance, a couple banks that are providing some experiences. Just know that some of the resources that you're getting, it is fake money. This is pretend, but this is about financial literacy and a couple other experiences as well. So to our community, time to start getting active and engaged on the choice board. Our staff will be pushing the conversation in the classroom, as well as the district and schools pushing some communication out. This is our last personalized learning day of the school year. We've had 2 great ones so far. Excited for the engagement. More importantly, you can kind of see the unique feel to the experiences that kids are going to get to develop some of the different skill sets in the badge area. So yes, no school, but also we want to encourage you to make the day your own. If you want to engage in going on a job interview or playing financial education games or anything that you see on there, or engaging with CBI as a partner on some different field trips, feel free to customize your day, personalize it. More importantly, focus on the skill sets that you'd like to develop. Great time for Passport to Tomorrow, and excited about all the partnerships.
Thank you. With that, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Have a good evening.